Since the beginning of time, philosophers have sat around and asked themselves those indelible questions. Who am I? What happens to me after I'm gone? And what is my purpose on this earth while I am here? And so today in interpersonal communication, we'll be talking about communication and personal identity or ourselves. And so let's talk about ourselves or the self or our concept of ourselves. I really enjoy this term concept when added to another term. We're not necessarily talking about reality in its objective sense. We're talking about a reality concept. We're not talking necessarily about ourselves or the self. We're talking about our concept of the self or our identity. And so our identities are established through communication. Uh, Identity is a multi-dimensional process of internalizing and acting from social perspectives. And so we are intersubjective beings in that we define ourselves in relation to other folks. And so as we move through life, we further hone in on who we are, or we further establish who we are based on our previous interactions and responses to the external world. And so the existentialists would say that we really have no essence. Now, the naturalists or the positivists might say that we do have an essence, an indelible subjectivity, to use terms borrowed from philosophy. So the existentialists would say that we have no essence. Existence precedes essence. So we are born from this perspective, and then we provide ourselves with our own essence. You grow up, you learn a language, you are given a name, other people give you a nickname. You give yourself status and you establish a career and positions within society based on things that you have done in the past. And so we provide ourselves with our own essence. Now, this is an extremely socially produced and constructed perspective. Others might think that we have always been who we are, and there is this essence, this indelible quality that makes us who we are. And so you might think about this initial conversation or negotiation between our essence as being there when we are born, or always being in a state of becoming, and further honing in and defining who it is, a process that unfolds over time. We are all intersubjective beings. And so we define ourselves through communication with ourselves, intrapersonal communication, and with others, inter and group and cultural communication. And so I like to ask this question: are we more who we think we are, or are we more who others think we are? Let's think about that question for a moment and ask yourself this question. You might think about yourself and you might think, this is who I am. This is just my natural way of being and moving through the world. But do others see you in this same way? I see myself as a polite and easygoing and outgoing individual. Do others necessarily see me that way? And so, if I think about that, am I more who others think I am, or am I more who I think I am? To problematize just a little bit further, or are we more who we think others think we are? And so we oftentimes psychologize others and we think for others because we don't necessarily know exactly what they're thinking. We think they are thinking, and oftentimes we think they are thinking something about us. And so, even when we are defining ourselves based on our own perceptions and our own evaluations, we are oftentimes relaying those perceptions and evaluations off of other people. And so, this is a little bit of what is at stake here when we look at the core of that definition uh, of the self. We internalize social perspectives. And so, these perspectives are derived from group settings, but we internalize them and we start to see ourselves in relation to other people. And so our concept of the self is established through intrapersonal communication with ourselves, interpersonal communication with other people, oftentimes in close relationships, and then group and cultural communication, communication with larger groups. And so we see ourselves as independent beings, and then we define ourselves in relation to our close relationships. And then we have different cultural and group belongings and affinities, and we start to define ourselves along those lines as well. And all the while, we can recognize when some of these perceptions link up, when some of them overlap, and when some of them clash. As an employee, I might be one way. As a family member, you might be another way. Amongst close friends, someone might be a completely different or a third way. And so our identities are multidimensional. They are dynamic in that they change over time. They are not static. And they have very various elements to them. And so we can choose which face we want to put forward in any given instance. Does that mean that we are not being authentic or not keeping it real? Or are we just recognizing the situation that we are in and changing our personality ever so slightly? You can see the pitfalls of both. If you do not have uh, a certain sense of continuity in who you are, and a certain sense of reliability that the same person will show up over and over again, then you might lack credibility or authenticity. At the same time, if you do not know how to regulate certain extremes in your own behavior patterns, then you might be seen as not recognizing a situation for what it is. And so we have particular others. These are our close friends. These are our people that we are aware of. And then we also have generalized others. We don't know that much about this particular person. And so we develop an understanding of them based on some of their group or cultural belongings. And so, culture, the ways in which groups start to share norms, beliefs, and values. Oftentimes, we look at ethnicity, sex, sexuality, class, religion, nationality, so on and so forth, as large cultural markers. And so, ultimately, this constitutes our subject positionality. And so our place in society. There's a constellation of all the people in a society, and everybody fulfills or exists in a certain space or a place in relation to everybody else. And oftentimes we start to see power structures form where you see people that have a majority of the wealth or a majority of the power are from a certain group. And so we would oftentimes like to be a part of that group if we can change. And so certain things we can change our subject positionality, other things are a little bit more static. And so you can go back to that conversation that we had in the beginning. Do we provide ourselves with an essence, or are we born with an essence? You can see that it's a little bit of both. Some things we cannot change, other things we can change. Certain things we can change that we didn't used to be able to think that we could change. So, education, relation, society, something like educational level, we're involved in changing right now. Something like age will undoubtedly change over time. And so society has created. And so we should be, and we almost have to be, aware of others. And so we socially compare ourselves with others. We put a certain face or a performance forward. After this video, I might watch this video and engage in a little impression management. Did I put the best face or the face that I wanted to put forward to a public audience? I might compare myself to other video lectures online. And then I might think about how much I self disclosed or how much I talked about myself, and how much people might understand about me from this video lecture. All of this is a little social comparison, a little face work, impression management, and thinking about my levels of self disclosure. And so here we are coming to the end of this brief lecture, and I would like us to engage in an activity. I would like you to present to me via email a public message that you produced and disseminated recently. This can be a video post such as this. It could be a video or audio message that you left just one other person. It can be a text message, a social media post, or any other type of interpersonal or social message that you produced and disseminated to somebody else, the public or a group. Identify and discuss your levels of self disclosure. How much did you say about yourself? How much did you give off about your true or somewhat authentic personality? Think about your face that you put forward and engage in a little impression management. What type of self did you present? Why did you present this self or this form of yourself or this identity to this person, this group, or the public audience? Rate on a scale of 1 to 5 whether you thought this performance of this particular self was successful. 5 being ultimate success, 0 or 1 not that successful. Chances are there might have been some feedback. And so now you can discuss a little bit about the levels of feedback that might have been involved that um, prompted you to rate the success level as you did. So let's remember, we're thinking about the self. The self is dynamic, is dynamic and multidimensional, and it is established through communication with others. And I would like you to do a little face work and impression management and rate your levels of success and self disclosure based on the examination of a public message that you have already produced and disseminated. Now, if you did one just very recently, this would be great. If you would like to do one specifically just for this brief assignment, then you can as well. And so identify and discuss a few of the levels that we had mentioned, and then ultimately rate whether this was successful or not based on some feedback. Thank you.